Hey, everybody, this is Brett Ingram, and this is the optYOUmize podcast, the show that helps entrepreneurs build their dream business and dream life. Today, we're talking with Jake Smolarek, high performance coach and entrepreneur with over 20 years in business and 17 years in coaching. I'm super excited because I know in my life, great coaches can make a huge impact in helping people reach their goals in every walk of life. So, with that, welcome, Jake, and thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you, Brad, for having me here. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, I am too. I'm fascinated by your background. I'm fascinated by what you do. So I have a lot of stuff I want to talk to you about, but let's start off with your background, if you don't mind. I'd love to ask you to share your personal story because I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think most of us, we're taking our story for granted. And I was talking to one of my clients recently, and she got an amazing story as well. But we sometimes stop kind of believing that it's a great story, because people say like, "How did you do that?" Like, "Oh yeah, I just came here with 150 pounds in my pocket, with nothing else, just a big dream, and somehow 20 years later, I'm running successful businesses." It's like, "How did you do that?" It's like, "Yeah, it just happened." But no, that's not true. It didn't just happen. So I'm originally from Poland. I came to the UK, actually 21 years ago, so in 2004, with 150 pounds in my pocket, which is about $180. And when I arrived in Gatwick Airport, which is like the second biggest airport in the UK after Heathrow, I have to spend £39 on a bus going from Gatwick to Abergavenny in Wales. And that was like one-fourth of my fortune. And I was like, oh my God, like this money is going very quickly. But yeah, and then I started working in a one-star restaurant, and I was like, oh my God, it can't get worse than that. And they'd have to explain it. No, it's a Michelin star, that's okay. I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. And then yeah, I always wanted to open my own business. So eventually I landed in London. I founded a mentor. The mentor told me to start a business because I told him like, hey, I want to be rich, whatever that mean, right? And yeah, he told me to start a business, to start a construction business. I remember like today we've been sitting in Mayfair, which is like one of the most expensive areas on this planet, because this is where he lives. And we're drinking coffee, and I said like, hey, I want to be rich. And he said like, start your own business. And I was like, what business? He said, construction business. Like, I know nothing about construction, man. And he said, I remember like today, he said like, don't worry about it, don't create yourself a job, create systems. This is what business is all about. Find other people to do the job for you. And I was like, okay, I'm starting a construction business tomorrow. And I printed some business cards, I created a very crappy website, and in about 2 weeks time, yeah, 2 weeks time, I've got my first client.
That's amazing. I mean, so for you, the idea of becoming an entrepreneur was sort of the combination of you wanted to be financially successful, but also you had somebody say to you, "Look, that's the best path."
Mm,
It's so. I mean, it's interesting because talking to lots of different entrepreneurs, everybody has sort of their own journey, and there was, sometimes there's one turning point that people have, and other
mm,
times it's just they were sort of born that way, right? From the
mm.
time that they started walking, they were trying to sell things to people and create things and do that kind of stuff. So that's pretty fascinating. So you started the construction business and you did that with zero experience. So even though you had a mentor, even though you had somebody sort of encouraging you, what gave you the confidence to be able to do that? And what would you say to another entrepreneur who might be out there thinking, I've got this idea, but I'm nervous about it. I don't know if I should really
Mm.
go ahead and do it.
Two things. First of all, I I had a vision. That vision wasn't 100% clear, but it was there. I had some amazing goals, and a great vision, and I really wanted to achieve them. So this was one of those things to actually push me. Um, and second, I had nothing to lose, like nothing. I was 20 years old. I didn't have a lot of money. I had nothing. So, like if you have nothing to lose, you just go ahead. Just do it.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful message because I do think in some ways we just as human beings, I think
Mm,
we have a larger fear of loss than
mm,
we do a desire for gain. And so if we think that by doing something we're risking something we already have, that tends to be a lot scarier. I think it's one of the reasons a lot of people, if they can, would rather get other people to invest in their business
mm,
because it isn't their own money. And then if it
mm.
doesn't go well, hey, whatever. People don't want to take on debt. People don't want to self finance in general. I mean, a lot of people have to, they have no choice. But it is interesting how when there's a lack of options, I remember hearing Damon Johns speak one time. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but the guy from Shark Tank, and he was saying when he was starting his clothing brand really really young, he had no money, right? So he
Mm,
was bootstrapping, and he said most people say, geez, if only I had a budget, if only I could go and spend all this money on ads and I could do all these. He said, but to be honest with you, in some ways, it's a blessing not to have that because when you don't have other options, when you have to find through ingenuity, creativity, hustle, ways to get things done, it
mm.
teaches you skills, right? And it builds your resilience and your ability to handle things. Whereas if you could just pour money at things, then oftentimes it's hard to create efficient systems. It's hard to do things in the right way because you don't worry about the waste, right? So
Correct.
yeah, it's kind of an interesting dichotomy there
Mm.
because people naturally would want to have more to be able to start, yet at the same time, there's something about the clarity and the focus of saying, "Look, I got nothing. I gotta make this work."
Yeah, you just figure it out, and that's the beauty about it. Most people, they worry about too many things. It's just like, stop worrying, stop wasting your energy on worrying, and start doing. It's just like, if you fail, so what? And then it's like, if you young, like 20, 23, 25, or it's just, you have nothing to lose. It's just give it a go. You have your entire life to rebuild anything. If you lose money, so what? But if you procrastinate and you're wasting time, you're losing something that you will never ever get back, because you can always make more money. It's easy. Once you learn how to make money, it's easy to make money. Yeah, sometimes it can be a little bit more challenging, obviously, but once you know how to do it, it's like learning a recipe. If you know the recipe, if you master the recipe, I sometimes say it goes like this: first you learn, then you practice, then you master, and then you're becoming a legend. This is how it works. As simple as that.
I love that. It's very, very simple, very clear. Yeah, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I do think that oftentimes I know it's cliche, but oftentimes, right, we regret the things we didn't do and the
Mm,
chances we didn't take. Because even if you try something and it doesn't work, there's a lot of value in failure, if you want to call it that, or stumbling blocks, because that is the very thing that teaches you
mm-hmm,
how to overcome obstacles. It gives you that resilience. I remember when I was in high school, right? So I was a young guy and I went out for the cross country team, and I was not a great
mm,
runner. But there was one thing about cross country that fascinated me. It's that we would do this one loop each year that was really long. It was 10 miles out, 10 miles back. And for a high school cross country team, 20 miles is a lot to run. It was like a 10-mile loop or something. And you don't usually run that much because the courses are like 3 miles. So everybody dreaded whatever day our coach was going to have us do it. But the one thing about it is you have all this dread, you have all this fear leading up to it. Then you do the day and you get there and you get back. And the fascinating thing about that is you then have this sort of confidence that you build from the fact that, look, I did that and maybe I wasn't fast and maybe it didn't go
mm,
well, but I know now that I can run 10 miles if I have to, right?
mm.
And so if you try something and it doesn't work out, if you pay attention to the lessons also that you learn, there's value in that because you can adjust your approach and do it differently next time, and you get better and better, so you get closer to the target.
100%. And I love what Steve Jobs once said, that you cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards, right? And most people, they worry about too much, like for example, oh, I want to start my own business, but I don't know which one. It's like, oh, I'm the fear of missing out. It's like, don't worry about it. Your first business is not going to be your last business anyway. You're starting your own business not to, only few people, like, I don't know, maybe Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg. Even Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook wasn't his very first business or business idea, right? uh, it's just like you're starting your own business to learn business skills. At the same time, I love when people come to me and they say like, oh, I don't have any business skills. Like, every business skill is learnable. You can learn anything about business. Or I love when people say like, oh, I will never succeed because I wasn't born with a success chromosome or something like that. No, it's bullshit. Anyone can learn how to win in business, but unfortunately it takes some time. Again, it's like, first you learn, then practice, then master, and it takes time. Every single overnight success takes 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, you only see the end result, right? You don't see
Mm,
all the other things. And I think that that's a really important lesson also, is that we live now in a society that's so visible, right?
mm,
And there's so much access to everything. And so everywhere you look, there are images of success and easy, like,
mm,
wealth and profit and beauty and all these other things. And the reality of it is, people that are in those positions very often work really hard to
mm,
create whatever it is. And sometimes it's phony to begin with.
mm,
Sometimes it's all image. But even when it's not, I don't know too many people that I've spoken to, and I've spoken to a lot of entrepreneurs that were like, yeah, I got up one day, I had this idea for a business. I put out my shingle and, hey, money just started rolling in. Almost
mm,
everybody has a story where, even if things were going great and even if their first venture was killing it, they hit some stumbling block that was devastating. They
mm,
lost everything and had to rebuild. But as you said, if you develop the skills and you develop the understanding for how it works, you're able to bounce back. You're able to channel that into another place and do the same thing over and over again. So I'm curious, you were able to scale a nonprofit from 2 volunteers to over 600. What leadership or business principles did you get from that you think people can apply in their own businesses?
well, first of all, we have to understand that a non-profit actually have to make profit. uh, because non-profit or any charity, it's still a business. It's a business, and you have to treat it like a business. So we've been successful because, first of all, it was two of us, so me and my business partner. So if it's two people, it's a little bit easier. I always say that in business, 1 plus 1 doesn't equal 2. It actually equal 11, because you can give yourself feedback, you can bounce ideas and stuff like that, and you're helping each other. You always have each other back. And I was the person who was treating it as a business, and my business partner, he was a people person. So it was a great mix, because I was a little bit behind, but I was making sure that everything is done properly. And even if we had just volunteers, so basically we didn't pay most of those people, or if we paid, it wasn't a lot. I always say like, you are like a proper employee. I mean, if you don't want to, you can go and do something else. But if you're working for us, and then because you're working for us, suddenly you have access to Mayor of London, you can go to BBC, ITV, major radio station. Like, you can put amazing things into your CV, and you can do it in 6 months, something that you wouldn't be able to do in any other job in 10 years,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, you're not getting the money, but you're getting the experience and lots of other things. So I was treating those people like proper employees. Don't take me wrong, we had fun and everything, but everything was strict. One doesn't exclude each other, right? So we had fun loads, but it was like a proper job, well, part-time job for most people. And if someone make a mistake, I always say like, it's okay to make mistake once, and then you get, like in football or soccer, you're getting a yellow card. The first yellow card, it's fine. Don't Okay, just don't make the same mistake second time, because if you're making the same mistake second time, it's not a mistake anymore. It's a choice. and you got a red car and you out. It's like, oh no, give me another chance. You had another chance. That's it. Thank you. It's like, oh, you're very brutal. No, I have to. I'll tell you the funny thing. Maybe not the minute, but the year when me and my business partners left the organization after about a year just collapsed.
Wow.
Because they were not strict. They were just like, everybody just wanted to be a boss. It was just like, yeah, it's you're running a business here, so you have to be a bit strict, like with any business, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that makes sense. So what did you do? How were you able to recruit all those people, and how were you able to build from? I understand structurally that makes total sense, right? You put in these, you put in these rules, so that way you knew that as it grew, you were going to be able to maintain that and scale it in a way where it was
Mm,
still high functioning. But
yes.
how did you get all the people? Was it that you were selling the idea that, hey, you get experience, you get access, you get all these other things that you wouldn't be able to get elsewhere? So yes, I understand that you're not getting a paycheck really, but look at the other benefits you're getting. Was that sort of the messaging you used?
Well, we at the same time we've been doing a lot of fun things. Like we've been doing events at really cool locations, at locations where the Sex Pistols used to play or Rolling Stones used to play, and we've been, dealing with a lot of famous people, well-known and famous people. It was amazing things that we've been doing. So it was fun. We've been attracting loads of people. Everybody wanted to be involved, but I always say, like, if you want to be involved, you have to be involved, not half involved. But if you're doing something, do it. If you want to do it halfway, just find another organization, because we're not going to do it halfway. That's why we grew pretty quickly, and we grew, yeah, properly. Like it was a proper organization. Because you have to be strict. Again, it doesn't mean that we didn't have a lot of fun. We've got loads of fun, but unfortunately, it was a business, and sometimes we have to work 20 hours a day and only had like 4 hours of sleep, because you have to do what you have to do.
Yeah, I mean, there are deadlines, there are crunch times, and
Mm,
that's the thing. I think that when people are sold the dream of entrepreneurship and owning a business,
mm,
they see all the positives, right? Same thing like we were talking about with Instagram or whatever. You see social media, and all you see is the person at the mountaintop. You watch the NBA
mm.
finals and you see them holding the trophy, and you say, wow, what great would it be to be that kind of athlete? What you don't see is the hours and hours and hours in the
Oh
gym,
yeah.
sacrificing all of their personal stuff to do. Now, don't get me wrong, they're rewarded really well and they get to play a sport for a living. Not a bad way to go. But at the same time, it's not all, I mean, right? It's not all
Mm,
easy, and nothing is ever just all gratification. There's a lot of work. And by the way, that's what causes the feeling of gratification to begin with. Things that come easy to us, we very rarely value. Things we have to
mm,
work for, we say, hey, you know what I mean? I care more about this, right? There's a movie. I'm probably dating myself a little bit, but there's a movie, St. Elmo's Fire, from back in the 1980s, and there's a girl in it whose father is rich, and he sets her up with an apartment. He's going to get her a job. He's got all this stuff, and so her life is set.
mm,
And she decides, I don't want this. Like, I'm going to go get my own job, and I'm going to get my own little dumpy apartment. And I'm going to live there. And she says the first day she does that and cuts her dad off and says, look, I love you, but I don't want this. Does her own thing. She says to her friends the next day, I made myself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich last night, and it was the best one I ever had,
mm.
because it was hers. She
Oh
earned
yeah.
the money, she paid for her own thing, and it was her own effort that created it. So
Mm.
there's value in that, right? There's
And
dignity in work. There's dignity in work.
actually, that's where the fun is. You know,
Yeah.
you know what they say. As cliche as it sounds, it's not the destination; it's the journey. This is where the
Yeah.
fun is. So coming back to where I met my mentor for the first time, his name was Patrick, and we've been sitting there in Mayfair drinking that coffee, and he looked at me and he said, like, I wish my kids would be as driven as you, but they will never have that. They will never understand, because this guy, he's close to be a billionaire. When
Yeah.
I met him 20 years ago, he was already like rich, like $500 million or something like that. So those kids, they will never understand.
Right.
And I didn't understand what he said at the time. I was like, what do you mean? Everybody have that drive. Like, no, you have that drive because you have nothing and you want to achieve something. And again, don't take me wrong. When I was saying that, hey, I want to be rich, it wasn't all about the money. It was about what the money could buy or could create or what could happen with that money. Because I always say to people, if you're only chasing money, that's not the best goal. It's all about what you can create and do with that money. And again, don't take me wrong, when people say like, oh, money can bring you happiness, like, no, I think you're shopping at the wrong shop, man, if you're saying that. Because if you have absolutely loads of money, then yeah, more money can bring you happiness. But if you have nothing and then suddenly you have
Right.
money, oh, it
Right.
can bring you loads of happiness.
Yeah, there's a curve, a bell curve
Mm,
with that. You up to a certain amount, you need more in order to feel comfortable and happy. Once you get over a certain amount, actually, interestingly,
mm.
the correlation between happiness and money is actually inverted. The
Yeah.
more the more you have, the less happy people tend to be because it
Mm.
becomes more about a game of collecting and numbers than it does about just enjoying your life. I mean,
Yeah,
there's only so many yachts you can buy,
that's it.
right? And it just gets to a point of ridiculous excess, which, it's fine. If you've got the money and you want to do that, go for it. But it is, you can't fill those holes. If
Mm.
buying stuff isn't going to fill emotional holes in your life, it can
No.
make you comfortable. It can give you a lot of great experiences. But if you have other issues, those things need to be dealt with in another way. And so, yeah, no, I'm totally with you there. So you help entrepreneurs scale from zero to multi-million. What's the number one mistake you see that business owners make that usually keeps them stuck?
The number one mistake is not delegating and trying to do everything yourself. That's the biggest mistake uh, I see especially when people starting the businesses or they at the very beginning of that entrepreneurial journey. I'll give you an example. So, my more often than not, I have someone who is having a great job. They're making really good money. They're comfortable. They want to start like, let's say, a side hustle. And first of all, they will be like, okay, I need to have a website. So I will learn myself how to create a website. It's like, no, delegate. Yeah, but it costs money. It costs, let's say, I don't know, £2,000 or $2,000 to build a basic website. Like, yeah, it costs money. But first of all, you've got the money, and start learning how to delegate things, because eventually, if you want to scale, you cannot be one man band. You have to hire people, start delegating, start using VAs and PAs. These days, having a virtual assistant, it's a must, at least for me. But a lot of people, I call it, they have that Superman or Superwoman syndrome. They're trying to do everything themselves, but you only have 24 hours. You cannot
Yeah.
do everything. You should only be concentrating on the most important thing in a business, which is lead generation. If you don't have any leads, your business is not going to survive. Again, funny thing is, I always say money is not the most important thing in life, but it's close to oxygen. It's quite high, okay? But it's not number one. But in a business, when you're running a business, money is number one. And sometimes people trying to argue with me like, no, people are the most important. But like, I understand what you're saying, but try not to pay your employees, and they're going to
Right.
leave
Right.
if they're not going to get paid. Again, if you're running non-profit, that's a little bit different thing. Okay, when you have volunteers, but you know what I mean. It's like you have to make money so you can pay other people, and so then you can have fun and you can create great things. Um, but yeah, not delegating. It's a big no.
Yeah, I'll tell you, early on in my entrepreneurial career, I struggled with it because I
Mm,
brought people in and I didn't have a good understanding of how to do it the right way. They were virtual. I had always worked with people in the same physical space, so that's a
yeah.
totally different
Mm,
situation. And so when I was bringing people in, I didn't set them up for success. So in retrospect, I didn't blame them for the fact it didn't work out.
mm,
I blame myself because what I needed to do was give them the tools, not just dump a bunch of work on them and say, go do this. They didn't understand what they were doing or why. And so there were elements of it that just didn't make sense. And I was so busy, I wasn't there to give them feedback and to
Mm.
be able to be there to help move things along the right way. And so, yeah, I think, that's certainly a really big thing, and I think that all starts, like we talked about in the beginning, also with systems, because
Mm.
part of the reason, I think there's two main reasons people don't delegate. One is just the reluctance to give up control. As
Mm.
entrepreneurs, we're the idea people. We know what to do. We know how to do it. We're the best at everything. So it's hard to give that up sometimes emotionally.
Yeah.
Totally makes sense. The other piece of it is it's hard to give it up if you don't have structure. Because how do you give
Mm.
something up where it's like, well, what do I really need you to do? I need you to do one of these things and two of those and one of the, and it's sort of all over the place. As soon as you start to break out roles and you
Yeah.
have defined ideas for what each function needs to do, now you can sort of group things together and give those away to people in a way where it's measurable, it's quantifiable, they know what they're responsible for, and
Mm.
you can then predictably get work done and scale. And I think that's super important. So you've built business across lots of different industries, and so what are the universal success principles that work no matter what niche you're in and what business you're in?
I would say know what is it that you want. Know what is it that you want to build. I have the framework that I created about over 10 years ago, which is called a vision GPS. A vision is something that you want to build. Let's call it, this is your destination. You want to get there, but you have to know what is it. If you don't know, if you don't know where you go, any road will take you there. You're going to drift, on the ocean of life. But if you know precisely where you want to go, you're going to get there. Funny thing is, when you're starting, you don't need to know your exact destination. If you know where to go, which direction you go, that's good enough to start. But most people, they don't have a vision. Like, look at the most successful companies out there. They all have a vision or the founder, he got the vision or she got the vision, and they know what to do. And then the GPS in my framework, it's a short, it's a acronym from goals, planning process, and systems. Exactly what you just said, right? Because if you have those three, if you have this GPS, this GPS, like the GPS in your car, it will take you to your destination, no matter what. No matter what obstacles. If the roads are closed, this GPS will somehow get you there. But you have to know where you're going, and then you have to have some goals, because vision are not goals. Vision will be filled up with those goals. Another funny thing is, vision, you will never catch vision. Vision is something that will be evolving all the time. But that's good, because you want something to chase, like a stick and a carrot, let's say, right? But in a good way. Because what happened to astronauts who will go to space or go to the moon and go back? There's what else? We can go to the Mars, but we don't have the technology yet. So like they have nothing to aim anymore. They already achieved everything, and they get depressed, like really depressed. That's
Yeah.
why it's always good to have that vision, and it's good that vision is changing all the time. It's evolving, so we have something to chase. And then we must have really good goals. As cliche as it sounds, smart goals, because most people, they don't have smart goals. They're not specific. They're not measurable. Most people, they're like, hey, I want to lose weight, or I want to have more money. More money is not a number. You cannot measure that. And then you have to have a planning process in place, not just a plan. A lot of people ask me, okay, what's the difference between a plan and a planning process? A plan is fixed. If something happens, like there's a beautiful book called The Black Swan by Nicholas Taleb. Well, maybe it's not beautiful, but it's very clever book, but it's difficult book. But if something happens, so the pandemic was a black swan. We couldn't predict it. Well, we actually could, but that's another conversation. Uh, you know what I mean? It's something that we didn't
Yes.
know that happened. It happened, and then suddenly your plan is just no good anymore. That's why you have to have a planning process in place. So the planning process in place, I based on a book that called uh, The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Am I
Mm-hmm.
correct? Am I
Yep.
remember?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
You
That's it.
have to make sure that you know what's going on all the time, so you can adjust the plan or the planning process. So the planning process is so flexible. Pandemic, no problem. We're not going to sell on the high street. We're going to be selling online now. You have to adjust, and successful people adjust very quickly, because success likes speed. Like with me starting construction business, I could procrastinate and wait another few months, like, oh, how do I start? Just do it, and then figure it out on your way. And then systems are so important. Like, you are in marketing as well. It's like, for example, Google Ads, there are systems that runs 24/7 and is generating leads. Obviously, you have to do it in the right way. You cannot just, you know, turn on the ads, and it needs to be done properly. But yeah, if you have, proper goals, proper planning process in place, and you have systems to help you with your business, you will scale and you will grow, as easy as that.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful, and I love. I want to touch on something that you said throughout that, and that is the importance of how evolutionary these things are. I think one of the
Mm.
things that stops people is they hear these things, they intuitively sometimes even know these things. I need goals, I need a plan, but they focus so much on trying to make it perfect.
Mm.
And what I try to tell people, and the same thing in podcasting, I talk to people all the time that, oh, I want to have a podcast, but I'm not sure about this, I'm not sure about that. Look, start, because I'm gonna solve the mystery for you. Your first episodes, they're gonna suck because you don't know what you're
Yeah.
doing. It's just
Yeah.
how it goes, right? But that's the only way you get better. And by the way, your vision for whatever your podcast is going to be, the theme you want to be in, the thing, that's going to change too. So don't obsess about it. Just get
Mm.
started. And as you start doing it, you will learn faster on the job than you will sitting there in your room trying to plan everything out. Because once you get
Mm.
going, you realize, you know what? I really like this. I really don't like that. I love talking about this stuff. I don't like that. So you're going to adjust what you're doing anyway. And so if you
Yes.
have all these plans and everything's like letter perfect and you wasted an extra 6 months to do it, now you get started and you realize, oh, I'm going to pivot now anyway. Then you're
Mm.
discouraged because you wasted all this time and the plan you've got doesn't work anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm totally with you. Build in the idea and the expectation that these things evolve, they're dynamic, they change
Mm-hmm.
over time. And that's part of the way it's supposed to be. It's by design.
Correct.
And that's what also makes it exciting
Mm-hmm.
because you know that even though you have a destination in mind, you have all these other things, it can change. And there's something cool and exciting about that.
Oh yeah. Oh
Take
yeah.
it like an adventure.
Yeah. I always say to people, two words. First one, it's not perfection. Don't chase perfection. It's practice. The different p word. It's not perfection. It's practice, and it's not failure. It's feedback. Don't be afraid of failure. Get more feedback. The more feedback you get, the better you become. The better you become, the quicker successful you will be. As simple as that. So don't run away from failure, because actually the only failure that is actually a failure is when you stop trying. Like, you try something, you stop trying, you failed, and that's failure. But if you fail and you try again and try again and try again, it's not a failure. It's just feedback. You're getting feedback, you're learning, and then trying again, you're trying better. And it's the same with, you have to practice. As you said, your first podcast is going to be crap. Whatever, you are a host or a guest, both,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah.
But then you do 20 podcasts and you get better. And when they say, I can't remember the name of the book, when they say 10,000 hours to get really good at
Yes.
something.
Yeah.
Can't remember. Anyway,
I don't know the book either, but I know exactly what you're talking
you know
about.
the
Yes.
framework, right? But the
Yep.
thing is, for some people it's going to be 5,000 hours. For
Yep.
some people it's going to be 25,000 hours.
Right.
But the thing is, it will take time, so you better get going. That's it. It's just like, if it's going to take you 5 years to learn a language, just start today.
Yep.
And do it every day for the next 5 years. I've got another framework I call no 0% days, which means, like, if you want to achieve something, if you've got the goal, do something every single day, like every day, including vacations and trips, that will take you closer to that goal. But you have to do it every day. There's no 0% days. If you only read one email or one page of the book, that's still like at least 1%. This is based on Japanese way of thinking called Kaizen. When you're getting better every day, not a lot, just a little bit, but everything adds up. And people say like, oh, I'm not really a reader, but can you read half a book a day or half a page a day? Yeah, I can read which means like if you can read half a page a day, that means you can read loads of books in the next 10 years. Because most people, they overestimate what they can do in a month, but they underestimate what they can do in a decade.
Yeah, and I love that idea. The other thing for me about that is the momentum side of it.
Mm,
If I have a goal or I have something I'm working toward and I have a 0 day on it, I'm now feeling the momentum switches. I
mm,
go from feeling motivated to do it to now there's that inertia. It's hard
mm,
to get going again. If I made some progress, even if I had a depressing day and I feel like things didn't go my way today, I wake up the next day feeling like, well, I'm still a little bit further than I was the day before. So
mm,
let's keep it going. And it's the same thing whether it's physical fitness, like if you're working out, if you go to the gym and you force yourself to go, just make sure you keep forcing yourself the next day to go on whatever routine you've got. And then it's easier to maintain than it is
oh
to
yeah.
drop. The minute that you let it drop and you say, you know what, I don't really feel like going today, so I'm not going to go, even though it's a day I have to go.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've allowed yourself to give up. And so there you go, right? Now it's going to be hard to get back into it. So yeah, so you've faced business failures, depression, even a life-threatening illness. How did you brook that? How did you push through those times? And what advice do you have for any entrepreneur who might be facing setbacks? Because let's face it, not everything in life or business is all upward.
Mm. So coming back to this conversation that I had with Patrick 20 years ago, one of the things he said, like, remember, a proper entrepreneur will fail or will bankrupt at least 3 times, like, and then you become a proper entrepreneur. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? And then when in 2007-8, with the massive credit crunch happened, I lost everything and more, which, like, I was in debt. I called Patrick and I said, like, I lost everything. And he said, congratulations, start again. It's part of the game. Don't worry about it. And then I like playing video games. And then one day I realized life is a little bit like a video game. You're playing, you'll make a mistake, you keep playing, you just start all over, start again and start again. You're making a mistake, start again, upload and you save. This is how it works. If you make a mistake, you just like, okay, you're still alive, you still have 2 hands, two legs, you have your brain, use it. Most people, they have the brain but they're not using it, they're saving it for later, like, I don't know. It's the same with everything, they've got the skills, they've got everything, but they're just not doing things because, I don't know, the fear of FOMO effect, the fear of missing out. Or
Yeah.
some people are afraid, like, yeah, but what if I leave the money on the table? Well, then you will find a better table, with more money on it. As simple as that. But you have to move forward. And as you said, with the momentum, like, just keep the momentum going. That's why no 0% day. I'll tell you a very quick story. I once lost about 14 kilograms. I have no idea how much is it in stones, but that's 14 kilograms. It's a lot. And I lost it
Yeah.
in 45 days. And
Wow.
someone asked me, like, how did you do that? And I said, like, oh, it's very easy. Very easy. You wake up in the morning, you go for about 2 hours walk in the morning, and then you do 10 kilometers a day, every day for 45 days, and you eat very well. You have the deficit of the calories, and then you're losing, very quickly. But this is insane. How can you run 10K every day? It's like, it's not, because when I wake up, it's not, am I feeling like running today? No, it's a decision has been made. It's like, do I need a coat because it's raining or not? That's the only decision I have to do, because I know I'm going for a run. That's it. The decision has been made. It doesn't, if it's snowing, no problem. It's easy for me to say because I already have done it. When I was 14, 15, I wanted to lose some weight, and one day I said, like, okay, I'm losing weight, and I started running every day, snowing, raining. Is it, middle of the night? Doesn't matter. We came back from a family trip, and it was about quarter to 12, at night. And I was started, preparing for my run, and my mom was like, what the fuck are you doing? I was like, I'm going for a run. Because when I said every day, I said every day, and I mean it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I mean, credit to you to have that resolve and commitment, but you can see the value and the benefit from
Mm,
that because when you keep promises to yourself,
mm,
you also build your self-esteem and you build your capability because you start to feel
100%.
like, hey, I can do anything. Look, I set my mind to this and I did it. Now I can do something else. So, all right, if someone listening wanted to start a business today, but they have no money, they have no experience, is there any sort of step-by-step or practical action plan that you could give them?
I would say it depends on the person. There are some people like myself that like I will just do it, but not everybody is like this. So one of the best method is find another entrepreneur, someone who is already in a business for 10, 15, 20 years, and say like, hey, can I help you with your business for minimum wage? And then go there and work for them and learn from them. So this is probably one of the best ways to start a business. Go work for that person for a year, 2 or 3, learn everything that you can, ask as many questions as you can, squeeze them like a wet towel, basically. And because they will tell you, every single entrepreneurs, we love sharing the information, we love telling people. Unfortunately, most people, they listen, but they don't do anything. But if you really want to be successful, this is the easiest way to start a business. Or if you are a little bit more crazy and you are not afraid of losing everything, for example, uh, just go and start it, because your first business, it doesn't matter what it is. I didn't start construction business because I had a passion for construction. Kind of opposite. I didn't know how to. I knew nothing about construction. I knew how to use the hammer, but that was it. That was my whole knowledge about construction. But Patrick explained it to me that like you're starting your first business because you're going to make loads of mistakes, you're going to fail. So start something that you are not passionate about. Again, how do you develop passion? The only way to develop passion is to do something for a very long time and then you fall in love and then you're so good at it that it becomes a passion. You cannot just find a passion. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's good advice. It's simple, but it's clear. And that really is at the end of the day, you've either got to just do it yourself or you got to find someone else who's doing it and learn from them.
Yeah.
And I think those are two great ways to do it. All right. So where can people find you, find your products, find your services, and connect with you?
I mean, the easiest thing is to just Google me, which is Jake Smolarek. There's not that many Jake Smolareks out there, so it's pretty easy to find me. If you just Google my name and my surname, I'll be there. I'll be on top. So yeah, that's the easy thing.
Awesome. Thanks for that. All right. I have one last question to ask because I think it's important and I'm always curious to know what everyone's going to say. And that's what's your number one tip for success as a business owner or an entrepreneur?
Start how to delegate as soon as possible and try to delegate almost everything and only concentrate on the most important things that you can do for your business, something that you are really good at, and delegate everything else.
Awesome. Yeah, great advice. And I think it's simple, but it's clear and it's effective. And I think a lot of times we overcomplicate things as entrepreneurs. So simple is really, really good.
Mm.
All right. With that, it's just about time to wrap things up. Thank you again so much, Jake, for sharing all your insights and great tips with us. Visit Jake Smolarek. That's SMOLAREK.com to book a free strategy session. It's not a sales call. It's 90 minutes of pure value, no fluff, just clarity and momentum. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And as always, remember, no matter what you want from your business and your life, don't compromise, optimize.